Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. I'm Steven Melendez, and I'm excited to be here with you guys, talking more soccer, our favorite sport, and just getting into it, because we just had some amazing international football. We had some UEFA World Cup qualifiers. We had the Nations League going off, and now we're back to our regular club football, and that's just the beauty of it. It never ends. We just continue to get our favorite sport night in, night out, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's show. Obviously, Just to get into a bit of what we're going to be talking about into today's show. To start off the show, I want to talk about the Premier League games that we had going on yesterday. We had some big time games between a lot of the top clubs in the Premier League, and I definitely want to get into that. Talk about where they are in the tables. In the next part of the show, I'm going to be talking about the UEFA Nations League, just recapping where all the countries are now, with all the games that have been won, lost, and just where they are heading into that final phase of matches. And then, of course, in the third part, I actually forgot to talk about this in my last show, because I was doing all the UEFA Champions League groups, and I forgot to talk about groups G and H. So I'm going to be doing that in the third part of the show. And then, of course, to finish it off, my favorite part, we're going to be talking about the top 10 central midfielders of all time. We got some maestros on this group. I mean, I'm excited to talk about it, but let's get right into the show, talking about the Premier League Saturday games. And we're going to be starting that off with Everton versus Liverpool, the Merseyside Derby. Everton entered this match with 12 points in 4 matches and looking like the best team in the Premier League. And you had Liverpool entering this match with 9 points in 4 matches and having played a really, really bad game their last time out against Aston Villa. We've already talked about enough. But they are still in the top 5, so obviously still looking for that title defense and in a great position for it as well, considering the bad starts by Manchester City and Manchester United. Let's just get into a couple of the pre-match notes heading into this game. For Liverpool, Joe Gomez, who has been starting for them, was replaced by Matip. You had Henderson returning to the midfield, and then you also got Thiago and Mane overcoming their COVID, quarantines to play in today's derby. So those are some big time, returns for Liverpool that would really make this team great. And for Everton, Tom Davies was out of the starting lineup, replaced by Alan, who recovered from his injury. Ben Godfrey, who was recently brought in during the deadline, will be playing off the bench, with Ancelotti sticking with Mina and Keane. And then, of course, you have Pickford, who keeps his spot despite the loan move for Olsen from Roma. So let's just get right into the game. And to start this game off, it's like as expected. Liverpool just got off to really hot and just finding space. Andrew Robertson finding Sadio Mane open inside the box for a goal after a perfect cross from Salah. I mean, at first it looked like it was for Mane, but I mean, I'm pretty sure Salah just knew exactly how much he needed to put on it to give Robertson that space. And the captain for Everton, Coleman, thought he had enough time to get to it, but Robertson just got right by him, found the space, and passed it perfectly to Sadio Mane for his goal. Pickford literally had no chance to saving that one. And then shortly after that, Liverpool had another chance, but man, Pickford just made a terrible challenge on Virgil van Dijk in the 6th minute, and it actually forced Van Dijk out with an injury, and it looks like it might be a really bad one. He could be out for a few weeks. That really hurts for Liverpool, and honestly, I feel like the only reason Pickford wasn't given a red card here was because it was offsides, but I think, the Van Dijk was offsides, but I think that's ridiculous. Like, I don't care if this guy's offsides. He should be given a red card because that was a terrible challenge. Everton, and the worst part about that was that Everton would then score their equalizer like 10 minutes after that with a really nice corner kick from James and Keane heading it into the back of the net. And I mean, it kind of hurts. It really does hurt as a Liverpool fan, but at the same time, you knew you still had the advantage in this game because you just have so much more quality than Everton does. And they were showing it. I mean, Alexander-Arnold had a really nasty free kick that almost went in, but Pickford did have a really good save there. And then Robertson just continued to make amazing runs and crosses to position his teammates in spots to score. They just wouldn't finish. I mean, there was one where Mane got another really nice ground cross from Andrew Robertson, and he just kicked it wide. He kicked it wide right. It just didn't go in. And then Ben Godfrey would actually make his debut for Everton in this game as he came on early for an injured Seamus Coleman Seamus Coleman in this game. And that was in the first half. But in the second half, Everton would get some solid opportunities. I mean, mainly because of the brilliance of James. Honestly, like there was one where he delivered a pinpoint cross to Richarlison, who headed it right into the post. And then James would then almost score a bender from outside the box, but it was saved by Adrian. Now, Liverpool would eventually take the lead off a really poor clearance from Mina. It literally put the ball right in the path of Salah. And of course, I mean, you give Salah that kind of opportunity, he's not going to mess it up. And he put it right into the net to take the lead. And, I mean, it kind of felt like it was Liverpool's game at that point. I mean, up 2-1, they have all the confidence or motivation in the world after their man Van Dijk goes out with an injury, and it looked like they were about to double their lead. But Pickford came through with an even better save than the first one after Matip headed it to goal, and he made a ridiculous diving save, and that kept him in this game, and it gave him just enough time to give Dominic Calvert-Lewin the space to do what he has done all season long, and that is score another goal and equalize this game. He's actually the first Everton player to score in the first 5 games of a campaign. Huge start to the season for him, and I mean, the game wasn't over though. I mean, Liverpool were getting chances, were getting opportunities, and it looked like they had the winner with a Henderson score off a perfect pass from Mane, except VAR would call it offsides, and it was not offsides. I mean, I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's no way. I mean, I've seen other things get called offsides, and if you're going to call that offsides, there's so many other opportunities where you could have called offside. Like, it's just, no. Liverpool should have won this game. They should have had this win. I mean, Pickford should have had a red card. I mean, there's so many little things here where Everton just got very, very lucky, and they get through with this draw. But I mean, Liverpool, it just feels like a missed opportunity here, even though they definitely didn't get the luck of the draw. It just really feels like a missed opportunity here for them to get these 3 points. But in the end, Liverpool are unbeaten in their last 23 meetings against Everton in all competitions. It's their longest run against a single opponent in history. Huge. So Everton's, they at least get the draw and stay on top of the Premier League. But with everything that kind of went right for them, it just kind of felt like they didn't deserve this draw. So next, we're going to be moving on to Chelsea versus Southampton. That ended in a 3-3 draw. Chelsea entered this match with 7 points and just outside the top 5. And Southampton entered this match with 6 points and and on the outside of the top 10. A couple of the pre-match notes, you see Edouard Mendy was out with an injury, so Kepa gets the start and goal, and you'll see how they eventually regretted that decision. Christensen, Mount, and Pulisic got the start in this game, with Pulisic getting his first Premier League start of the season, finally coming back from injury, and Ziyech was just fit enough to be on the bench. For Southampton, Nathan Redmond and Theo Walcott got the start. And for Walcott, it's his first since returning on loan. He used to play for them when he was younger, and then he's finally back with Southampton on loan. So just to start this game, Chelsea had complete control of this game early. Their attack was working perfectly. The skill between Werner, Pulisic, Havertz, and Mount was just insurmountable. Southampton just had no answer for them. The fact that they weren't up by more early on in this game kind of made you feel like, if Chelsea's defense, which has been absolutely atrocious to start this season, don't get it together, this could be another bad game for Chelsea. And it kind of didn't start that way, because Werner would go on to get his first 2 Premier League goals off just unbelievable goals. I can honestly, at least as long as I've been a soccer fan, I can't think of 2 more not debut goals, but 2 goals to start off your Premier League, tally than those 2. For him to get that ridiculous solo goal to start, I heard the commentators call it a dummy, but he just had it pass through his legs, and then it went through the defender who thought he was going to hold on to it, and then he just passed right by him. And then it was 1-on-3 against the whole Southampton defense. He cut right through them and scored a beautiful goal past the goalkeeper. Just ridiculous skill from Werner, and exactly why Chelsea paid what they did to get him. The guy's a stud. But then the second goal, honestly, it was all Jorginho to even able to have the mindset to even make that type of pass. He was in his own half, and then just absolutely launched it to where Werner was, and he made a solid run. And the first touch with his chest to get it just in front of him, and then the second touch to get it over the goalkeeper, and then to head it home. Just absolutely ridiculous skill from Werner, and 2 unbelievable goals to start his Premier League campaign. However, things would start to fall apart for Chelsea after that, because right before the half, Havertz loses the ball. Danny Ings gets into just enough space, gets by the goalkeeper, and scores the goal. He's one of the best one-on-one scorers in the league, and he was gonna make that no matter what. But then after that, the defense just fell apart for Chelsea. Zuma attempted a terrible pass to Kepa, but then Kepa made a silly decision to get out of his goal and try to stop the ball. But then if you're gonna do that, you gotta just go for it. But he made just a half-hearted attempted tackle that just allowed Adams to go right by him. And then it just looked even worse, because Kepa comes back. He makes a stupid slide once again to try to get the ball, misses it completely, and then Adams has enough time to go in front of goal and score. That's pretty much the epitome of this team's makeup so far. The defense is an absolute shambles. It doesn't know what to do. They need the veteran leadership of Thiago Silva, but I understand he'd had a really bad debut against Newcastle, but they need him. They just do, because you let him work through those kinks, because this is absolute trash. And they also need Edouard Mendy out there. Kepa looks like an absolute idiot. Just to be honest, he looks like an idiot out there. He could have easily just kicked it and it gone for a corner for Southampton. But instead he made some weird slide that made the ball hit the post and then go right back to Adams. It was just, it just looked so silly. But yeah, and then after that, Chelsea would go on to score once again due to the brilliance of Pulisic, Havertz, and Werner. I mean, Pulisic giving a really nice pass to Werner, who then found Havertz wide open inside the box. And he just chipped it home. Easy. But then, and it actually looked like Chelsea were going to be able to go away with 3 points. But once again, the defense doesn't do what they have to do, doesn't get the ball out, away from goal. And Theo Walcott gets it was a terrible shot. He hit it at least towards the goal, but then Vestergaard got a deflection on it, and it goes past Kepa, and they get that draw. I mean, it's just a terrible way for Chelsea to lose this game. I mean, they didn't lose it; they got the draw, but it feels like a loss because they have way more quality than Southampton. They shouldn't be drawing this game. 3-3, come on. It just looks like they cannot stop anybody. And it's going to look bad when they go up against a Manchester City, an Arsenal, a Liverpool, a Tottenham. It's just going to look really bad. So next we're going to be going to Manchester City versus Arsenal. Manchester City were looking at their worst start to a Premier League campaign in 10 years, which is 4 points in 3 matches. And Arsenal have looked very strong with 3 wins in 4 matches and are in 5th place heading into this game. Now, there are some big key misses in this game. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne out with an injury during his international duty. However, they did get Sergio Aguero back for this game, so that was huge. And then for Arsenal, new signing Thomas Partey started his Arsenal campaign on the bench, and then Pepe gets his start over Eddie Nketiah. Now, to start this game, Arsenal were applying that pressure on Man City, trying to get the ball away from them. But as always, Man City handled it perfectly and were getting numerous chances at goal. They would eventually score that goal from a beautiful, it was an easy goal for Raheem Sterling, but it was a perfectly executed team goal that resulted in a solid shot from Phil Foden that was saved by Bernd Leno, but it fell right into the lap of Sterling for the goal. Honestly, the thing that started that whole thing was Mahrez's pass to Aguero to get that attack started. It literally opened up everything for Man City and left some Arsenal defenders in the dust. Now, Arsenal and Man City would each get opportunities at goal after that, but just wouldn't capitalize on them, partly due to some solid goalkeeping, but also missed opportunities, to be honest. One of the Arsenal players that really stood out to me was definitely the youngster Bukayo Saka. He was just playing some great football, getting into open space in Man City's box. He just couldn't get the ball past Ederson. And just a quick note, Ederson's ability to get off his line when Arsenal had a few chances at goal was extremely impressive. It just never felt like Arsenal were a serious threat at goal, to be honest. And that's why they didn't score at all and it ended up being a 1-0 win for Man City. Kind of uneventful, but in the end, Man City does what they got to do and got their 3 points. And now last but certainly not least, we got Manchester United versus Newcastle United. Manchester United will go on to win this game 4-1, but entering this match, they had only 3 points in 3 matches. And for Newcastle, they had 7 points in 4 matches and were just inside the top 10. So for Man U, after looking terrible in their last game against Tottenham, they made a complete overhaul of their lineup, making 5 changes in total. Anthony Martial was out with a suspension, so Daniel James got a chance to join the attack. Mata, McTominay, Fred, and Lindelof were all brought into the starting 11, and the most notable drop was Pogba being on the bench after his terrible performance against Tottenham. And for Newcastle, they only made 1 change. Fabian Schär was dropped to the bench with Federico Fernandez taking his place. So to start this game, as it has been all season for Manchester United, they were applying pressure on Newcastle, but it didn't really work out because it ended in an own goal off Luke Shaw in Newcastle's first attack. And honestly, it was a bit lucky. I mean, the odds of that ever happening again are not very high. It just kind of caught De Gea off guard. Didn't expect that ball to bounce that way, and it just got past him and into the goal. But it just felt like classic Manchester United, to be honest. However, after that, Manchester United, they would settle into the game a bit, finding a few opportunities at goal and holding possession in the Newcastle half. So that was a good sign for them to, just get settled into the game. And they would eventually score that goal with a Harry Maguire header off a solid Juan Mata corner kick. So there were some good early signs, and you could tell from the faces of Manchester United players that, they were excited about the goal, but at the same time it was like, we need to play better. Like, they knew it, and they certainly did, although they didn't really get a goal until much later in the game. I mean, even Bruno Fernandes missed a penalty, and it would just feel like another missed opportunity for Manchester United in this game. Because, in going into the 80th minute, it was still 1-1. And Manchester United were barely getting opportunities. They got that, like I said, they got that one penalty, but it was missed by Bruno Fernandes. And after that, I mean, it just didn't feel like they were really threatening Newcastle United. But that all changed until when Rashford, Mata, and Fernandes combined for a beautiful goal in the 86th minute to give Manchester United the lead. I mean, Mata to find Rashford streaking down that left flank, and then for him to have that nice, like, I don't know, it was weird. It was like it wasn't like a back heel pass, but it was like, he saw him coming, he just kind of like, flicked it to Fernandes. He was making that run right behind him. And then that goal from Fernandes, it was just so nice to hit the top right corner. From the angle that he was at, it just looked so good. And just classic Bruno Fernandes, just doing what he does for Manchester United, man, getting them wins. And they would go on to double their lead after that with a wonderful goal from Aaron Wan-Bissaka, one you would not expect from him. I mean, it's been like 90-something matches since his last goal, and it was a really nice one. I mean, you can kind of see why Manchester United fans are probably, hoping he gets up a little more, gets more opportunities in the attack, because he certainly has the opportunity and the ability to do so. And then, of course, it's just a little cherry on top. Manchester United just rubbing it in the faces of Newcastle United, getting a goal in the final seconds of this game, with Rashford, just running up the left flank, Fernandes finding him on that run, and then him scoring past the goalkeeper, just literally in the final seconds of the game. So that would be Manchester United going up 4-1 and getting a much needed victory. I mean, just if they would have even a draw in this game would have looked really bad for Manchester United with the way that they've started this season. But they do get the victory, get the 3 points, and do what they need to do. So that's going to wrap it up in this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the UEFA Nations League and just recap, what's going on there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I talked about all the Premier League matches that happened on Saturday, and now we're going to be talking about the UEFA Nations League. It just wrapped up their third and fourth matches of the competition, and we have just a few more coming up after that, and I'm just excited to get into it because we're almost done with this group stage. We're almost at the championship tournament. Obviously that's going to be happening in November, but still it's literally right around the corner. I mean, come on, guys. With the way COVID's been hitting, dude, these months have been passing by like crazy. So that championship is going to be here in no time. But let's just get right into these groups and see where these countries are heading into the final phase of the competition. So Group 1 is easily the biggest surprise, with Poland leading the group with 7 points. Italy has 6 points and Netherlands have 5, and Bosnia and Herzegovina are on the bottom looking up with 2 points. They've been playing the worst out, and honestly, the way the goal differential goes, it's about right. I mean, Netherlands has only scored 2 goals and allowed 2 for 0. Italy has scored 3 and allowed 2, while Poland has allowed 2 as well, but have scored 5 goals. So have certainly deserved to be ahead in this group. I mean, the last game, they ended up destroying Bosnia 3-0 and taking care of business, while you have Netherlands drawing against Bosnia 0-0. And then even before that, we had... what was it? Didn't Italy draw against them also? If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure Italy. Yeah, Italy also drew against Bosnia 1-1, while Poland has been taking care of business, and those 2 wins were against Bosnia. So Italy and Netherlands not taking care of business, while Poland have done just that and are now in the lead in this group. The only difference is that, Poland just needs to try to get a win against one of those top teams. If they can get a win over one of them, they can do it. They just have not been able to get over the hump like that. They drew against Netherlands 0-0. So my apologies. They drew against Italy 0-0 in the third match of the competition, and lost against the Netherlands in their first game. So they just need to take advantage of this start that they have. They finally have Lewandowski back, and it's not that he's been unbelievable for him. He did get 2 goals in their first. What did he have? The hat trick? No, he had 2 goals and an assist in that game against Bosnia. So he obviously took care of business when it was needed of him. But they need just a little bit of that magic against either Italy or Netherlands. If they can get a win against either of those 2 teams that have clearly underperformed, we could be seeing Poland top this group and actually go to the tournament, the final tournament of the UEFA Nations League, which would be unbelievable to even think, because I did not give them a chance. I saw Italy as clear front runners here, Netherlands possibly making a run here, and then also when you think about it, what I talked about in the last segment with Netherlands, Van Dijk just got a really bad injury, and even though the next matches aren't until November, that injury that he has could keep him out past that. So if they don't have Van Dijk, I do not see them coming up with enough goals, because they just don't have enough. They haven't had enough, and that's not looking good for Netherlands. You got Luke De Jong looking good. Memphis Depay, Donny van de Beek, you have Wijnaldum, but they're just not doing enough. And the way that they're playing De Jong, I know he can kind of play wherever he needs to, but they need to use him more up. His ability to make passes and get guys involved is very important for them. And I think that they really need that, especially with the guys up top that they already have don't really provide that. I like Wijnaldum. I like what he does. He's a very good team player, but just overall, it's just, I don't think it's enough. And then for Italy, I mean, you look at what they got. I mean, they got Pellegrini, Immobile, Chisa up top, and they finally have Verratti back, and it still didn't make a difference. Jorginho too, Barella, those guys up top need to play better if they want to really make a big difference. And they still have a chance. I mean, they're only behind Poland for 1 point. And I believe they take them on. Do they? No. Yes, and the first match that they have against Poland is literally the fifth match. Then they go up against Bosnia. So they have a huge opportunity to get through here. If they can at least get a draw against Poland, they have a huge chance to get through this group because they just need to beat Bosnia. Of course, that all depends on what Netherlands do, because Netherlands have a game against Bosnia and Poland, the two supposedly worst teams in this group. So they also have a chance to take care of business. So this group can literally go in any direction, but in the end, I actually feel like Italy can come through with this and actually lead this group in the end. But man, I mean, Poland are in great position here. Just 2 matches left, up by a point. So that's going to be a good one to watch. Next, we have Group 2. And this is a top-heavy group. I mean, we got Belgium with 9 points. Obviously, the best team in the world, or best country in the world, I mean, and looking really good to start. I mean, they did lose to England 1-0. And I was really, 2-1, I mean, my apologies. They did lose to England 2-1, and it was like, what in the world is happening there? I did not expect that at all. Like, at all. But they did lose that game. I mean, Lukaku got a goal early. Rashford came back. I talked about this. And then Mount getting that very, very lucky goal against Belgium. But they need to take care of business in these last 2 matches if they really want to go through. I mean, I don't expect Denmark and England to really make a run here, but Belgium are still too close for comfort. They need to take care of business and clearly show that they're the best country in the world. And they did that in the last match. I mean, they did beat Iceland 2-1, and not a dominant victory, especially against a team that has only scored 2 goals in their first 4 matches of this competition. To get that one against Belgium, that's not good, showing that Belgium actually have kind of a shaky defense. I mean, they have allowed the second most goals in this group, with Denmark and England only allowing 2 goals and Belgium allowing 4. However, the offense for Belgium is just on another level. They literally have scored more goals than all 3 teams combined in this group. So I just don't feel like Belgium are at any threat to not make it past this group. But again, they are only 2 points ahead. So literally anything can happen. And the first game of the next phase is against England. So they need to prove that they can take care of business and beat England. Because if they do that, they're through. They got 12 points with a game left, and they're going to win this group. They just need to. I mean, obviously, it all depends if Denmark defeats Iceland, and then that makes that final game between Belgium and Denmark even funner to watch. Like, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on that, because if Belgium and Denmark win their first of the next phase, and then the next match is going to be Belgium and Denmark for a chance to make it to the next group, to the final tournament, that's going to be exciting to watch. So, but I mean, in the end, I still feel like there's no chance Belgium doesn't make it. I mean, Denmark pretty much only have Christensen. I mean, they have a couple other players on that. I mean, you have Schmeichel, you have Christensen, who I'm not a fan of at all. You have Kajar, Thomas Delaney, but for the most part, it's just Christian Eriksen. I mean, Emir Horsberg as well is pretty good. Robert Skov. I mean, you got some players, but for the most part, like I said, it's Christian Eriksen and then the rest of the group. And I don't feel like that's going to be enough to get through to get past Belgium. Again, if England wins that first game against Belgium, that changes everything. That changes everything. If they can win a second game against Belgium, that would be huge and very unexpected, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, for the next group, this is a 2-headed monster here. I actually expected this to be the kind of group of death here because I really like Croatia and Sweden, but they are just completely outmatched here. I mean, Portugal and France have taken care of business against those teams, and then against each other, they drew. So they're each at 10 points. The only thing is Portugal has absolutely dominated the competition. 9 goals for only 1 goal allowed in their first 4 matches. I mean, just looking unbelievable. They 3-0'd Sweden in the last match, and then they had that 0-0 draw against France. So, I mean, they've kind of taken care of business, and specifically against Sweden, who have just looked completely outmatched. I mean, they've only scored 1 goal in all 4 matches, have allowed 8 for a -7 goal differential. I mean, not like Croatia's doing any better, but still, it's like, it's close. You know what I'm saying? Like, Croatia at least scored that 1 goal against Portugal, but even though it was in a 4-1 loss. But yeah, Portugal have just dominated this competition. It really all comes down to that final match between those 2 clubs. I mean, 2 countries. I don't know why I keep saying clubs. But it's the first game. Literally November 14th, that first game, we get Portugal versus France. And I feel like this one's going to be a lot more high scoring. I know I said the last one was going to be 3-3, ended up being 0-0. So I'm like, what do I know, right? But I mean, I'm not all about the predictions, but at the same time, I still feel like this is going to be a very, very exciting match. Both teams know they need to get a result in order to make, some distance between, the teams and the points. They don't want to go into another draw and leave it up to, whatever they do in their final game to because Portugal will be going up against Croatia, France against Sweden, and pretty much anything can happen at that point if they draw once again. So I just had wished Croatia would have come up with a little more here, because I know that those first 2 matches they didn't have Luka Modric or Rakitic, so that obviously made a huge difference for them. Those are easily their 2 best players. I mean, Modric, who, you might hear about him a little later in this show, is probably their best player of all time. And to not have him for those first 2 matches certainly made a difference. But I don't know, man. I just wish I could have seen a lot more from them. And it's, you got Kovacic there, you have Perisic, Brozovic, Lovren. I mean, you got a lot of players that are solid on that team. Pasalic, that I actually really like. And this is probably I think I read this one time that it was like, this is the golden era of Croatian soccer, football, whatever. And it's kind of sucks that they're really getting totaled by these 2 unbelievable stacked countries of Portugal and France. But that's just the way it is, man. They got pulled into a really tough group, but they do have a chance to stay in League A. They just have to take care of business against Sweden. I believe they take Sweden on in that final run. Let me just check. No, they do because since Portugal and France take on Sweden in that 5th match. If they can at least get a win. If they can get a win there, they're clearly through. They obviously have no chance at 2nd or 1st because they're 7 points off with 2 matches left, but they got a chance. They do have a chance to stay in League A, and I would really like that because compared to Sweden, even though I do like Sweden, I've said this before in my past shows that I like the kind of effort that they bring in every night. Croatia just has way more quality, and that's what I want to see. I mean, we all want to see high-quality players playing on a regular basis, against the top countries in the world. So that's going to wrap it up for Group 3. Now let's go into Group 4, where we have a pretty tight race. Spain is in the lead with 7 points, and then you have Germany with 6, tied with Ukraine. Now, I kind of feel bad for Switzerland here because, I feel like they've actually played pretty solid, just haven't gotten the results that they wanted. At least getting that draw against Germany 3-3 in the last match that they played was very solid, but then losing 1-0 to Spain before that just hurt. And then, of course, another draw against Germany, 1-1, and then it just it just feels like a lot of missed opportunities, especially that first match where they lost to Ukraine 2-1. That one kind of felt like the one that they could have won. But, I mean, I've been a backer for Ukraine in this tournament since the start when I was previewing them. You know, I felt like Ukraine were entering this tournament with, you know, a lot of great play and just, you know, just looking much better than Switzerland. And they've shown it. I mean, they're now tied with Germany after, you know, looking pretty solid. I mean, they started off the competition, like I had already said, with a 2-1 victory over Switzerland. And then they go on to win, and then it looked really bad for them. I mean, they lost 4-0 to Spain, and it looked like the wheels were kind of coming off for them. Like they didn't really have it because then they lost 2-1 to Germany. But then they took care of business against Spain, getting that 1-0 victory. I mean, that was very unexpected. I think I said it was like their first goal against Spain in like 17 years. Just a huge time victory for Ukraine and put them right back into contention to possibly lead this group. I mean, they're only 1 point off. You know, even though they've allowed 7 goals, they've scored 4, have the worst goal differential in this group. They have fought tooth and nail against these top teams and have taken care of business. But I feel like Switzerland deserves more here than just 2 points. I guess they technically have a chance to win, but it's, you know, minuscule. They need Spain to like fall apart, and I think like percentage wise, like they actually don't have a chance to lead this group. Like maybe make like a run for second or third and stay in League A. So they obviously have something, you know, left to fight for. So it's not like there's like nothing else left. But I just don't. It just kind of sucks because I said before, you know, this Nations League even started. I feel like Switzerland, play very well together as a team. You know, you have some solid, attacking power with Xhaka, Shaqiri, Severovic. Like you got some solid players on that team, and I think I got that right. Come on, Steve, you said that right, didn't you? Let me go back. Please tell me you got that right. Yeah, I did say it right. I did Severovic. Come on, I'm learning. Come on, you guys know I'm not like 100% into the whole international scene and all that, but I'm learning little by little. I'm here with you guys. I'm learning this stuff. Just stick with me, and you'll see. I'm gonna be on top of this like white on rice. I don't even know why I said that. Yeah, just forget about that. Okay, but let's just continue with this talk. With Ukraine, I mean, we look at the next couple matches that they got. Let's see, which is the first game they play? They play against Germany. And I feel like that's the one where they have the real chance because Germany have been playing poor. Like, their defense has not been what it's needed to be. They have some solid players in attack. I mean, obviously, you got Werner, you got Havertz, you got Sané. So you got some really impressive attackers on that team. But in terms of defense, they've allowed 6 goals. That's just one less than what Ukraine and Switzerland have allowed. So it's not been that good. Spain have obviously looked like the better overall team. I mean, they had that really solid game against Ukraine, and that's really the biggest difference because they're +4. So it's not. So other than that game, it's kind of been inconsistent for Spain. But overall, over these last 4 games, Spain have looked like the stronger team, and that's why they're up by a point. But again, it's only a point, so anything can happen here. And when you really look at it, with Ukraine having that game against Germany, and then what's the last game? Spain against Germany. So it really all depends on what happens in that first match, because if Spain takes care of business against Switzerland and wins, and Ukraine beats Germany, whoo, man, I wish it would have been Spain versus Ukraine, even though those 2 games have already happened. It's just, it kind of feels good that you get Spain versus Germany at the end, because I just don't have any confidence in Germany. I mean, the way I see them play, the way Joachim Löw kind of just manages it so complacent towards the end of the games, I don't like it. I don't feel like it's international football, and I mean, we'll see what happens, but I definitely see in the end Spain going through in this group. I feel like they've just been the more consistent team, the more high quality side, and I feel like that's going to ultimately take them through. So that's going to wrap it up for this UEFA Nations League segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, I'm going to be previewing the final two groups of the Champions League.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I talked about the UEFA Nations League and just recapped all the groups in League A. If you guys want to find out more about Leagues B, C, and D, I'll make sure to talk about that in the next show. But for now, let's get into the UEFA Champions League. And I know I missed on these two groups. And I don't even know how I missed on these two groups because my favorite team, PSG, is in Group H. So shame on me. But yeah, let's get right into this preview of the Champions League Groups G and H. In Group G, we got the two-headed monster of Barcelona and Juventus matched up with Dynamo Kiev and Ferencváros. Maybe I got that name wrong. Maybe I didn't, but who cares? Let's move on. For Juve, let's start it off with them. They have won 2 Champions League titles. That was before the 21st century in 1985 and 1996. They even won 3 Europa League titles, but that was in 1977, 1990, and 1993. So they have done a lot of winning in the Serie A, but not much in Europe. They just, I don't know what it is, man. They just have, and even with Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, they got one of the best players of all time on their squad. And he still got it. I mean, even though he's getting up there in age, I think he's like 35 now, he still got it. And they have not been able to get over the hump. I think even losing to Lyon last year, it's like, how? I would have much rather seen them against Bayern Munich instead of Lyon going through. But, you know, everyone likes an underdog, even though pretty much nobody was going to be beating Bayern last year. And possibly this year, who knows? But I'm getting ahead of myself. But let's just get into some of the top players on Juve. I mean, I've already talked about Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the best players of all time, and if anybody is going to get them over the hump, it's going to be him. He needs to, you know, play at his all-time self and really help this team create enough offense to really be, you know, a threat in the Champions League. You have Paulo Dybala, who, if he can stay healthy and really stay consistent, which he did last season, they will be a threat. You know, I feel like he is probably their most important player, even though Ronaldo's their best player. I feel like Dybala, and it makes sense because he did win the MVP of Serie A last year, and I just feel like he's definitely their most important player and the guy that's going to really lead them to the promised land, or at least help connect the team the most. Then you got that defending trio of Giorgio Chiellini, Leonardo Bonucci, and Matthias de Ligt. I'm not sure if de Ligt is going to be back from his injury before the start of this group stage, but he will be a factor late in the competition. You also got the goalkeeper, Wasiek Szczesny. I usually don't say his first name because I just go for that last name, but I went for it, so, who cares? And then, of course, at striker, they bring in Alvaro Morata on loan. Okay, terrible time for that. But they also got Juan Cuadrado and Adrien Rabiot to round out the team. In terms of fullbacks, they got Alexandro, but I think he also has an injury, and they're really weak in that situation. But in terms of everybody else, and I've always said, I've said it with PSG, I feel like you really need fullbacks in this modern day of football to really make your team complete. Juventus do not have that. I also have to make sure to talk about Weston McKinney, the American midfielder who has pretty much seemingly fit onto this team perfectly. His ball winning skills really stand out on this team and really makes a difference for them. And I feel like it'll really make a difference in the Champions League. Of course, he doesn't have a lot of experience there, but the other guys will help him along. You got a lot of great veterans on that team, and I feel like he'll be fine. But overall, in this group between Barcelona and obviously the other two teams that aren't that crazy, it's a big time battle between the first two, Barcelona and Juve. Those are the teams that are going to be moving on in this group, but which one's going to end up first? I feel like Juve is going to end first. I feel like they're going to lead this group and get into that first pot for the knockout round draw, just because I feel like they just have too much for Barcelona to handle. Of course, it could be wrong. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but again, I feel like with what Barcelona are dealing with right now, it's going to take them a little while to get acclimated with the new Ronald Koeman system, and I feel like it's going to give... obviously, with Juve, they also have the new Pirlo system to get used to, but I feel like Juve just have more overall quality than Barcelona. But now, next, let's get into that club that I was just talking about, Barcelona. They have won the Champions League 5 separate times. They won it in 1992, and then they won it in 2006, 2009, 2011, and 2015. They have won the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup 4 times. That's the most by any other club in history. And let's get into some of their top players. The club obviously has a lot of history. It's one of the most popular clubs in the world, and a big reason for that is because of one of the GOATs. Lionel Messi leads this club. He is one of their most important players. He will be the reason that they, make it as far as they do. However, I feel in order for them to really taste that Champions League glory again, they need everyone around Messi to really come through. You need Antoine Griezmann to be playing like his Atletico Madrid self. You need Philippe Coutinho to play like, the way he was playing in Liverpool, which he can. Even he hasn't adjusted well to the Barcelona life, but you need to see that Coutinho in order for them to have a chance. You need Frankie de Jong to improve off his solid first season. Ansu Fati to continue to develop. You certainly need Marc-Andre ter Stegen to come back from his injury. That's going to be vitally important because if he's still out, if he's out for the group stage, even if it's the whole group stage, it won't really matter. They got Neto to back him up, and I feel like that's going to be just fine, at least to go through in the group stage, to go through to the knockout rounds. But once they get there, they need Marc-Andre ter Stegen. The definition sweeper keeper is made for him. He's excellent with the ball at his feet. He got an assist last season, or I think he got 2 assists last season. So he obviously does a lot more than just shot stop, which he's amazing at. But then you got that defense of Clement Lenglet and Gerrard Piqué, the legend there. You also got Sergio Busquets. You got a lot of players on this club, but you just need those key players like Griezmann, Coutinho, Ansu Fati, De Jong. You need them to improve and play better than what they have shown. At least Griezmann and Coutinho for sure. Ansu Fati, he's too young. You can't really expect too much out of him. But still, he is a main piece for this team. So if they're going to be using him that way, he needs to show up. So regardless, I still feel like Barcelona, especially with that Marc-Andre ter Stegen injury, will end up second in this group. And I mean, that's solid. I mean, as long as you make it to the knockout rounds, it does not matter. Just get there and then take care of business against whoever you face, because regardless, you're going to have to take on the best to win this Champions League. So who cares who you take on in the knockout rounds? Just take care of business. So next, we're going to be talking about Dynamo Kyiv. Dynamo has had some success throughout the 70s and 80s, making it to the Champions League knockout rounds a few times, and even winning the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup in 1975 and 86. However, since then, they have had some success in European competitions, but not as much as I'm sure they had hoped. They'd make it to the knockout rounds a couple times in both the Europa and Champions League, but have yet to make it to the finals. They do rely on a lot of youth in Viktor Sihankov, 22 years old, Mykola Shaparenko, 21-year-old, Vladislav Supriya. I'm probably saying that name so wrong, but he's 20 years old. Vitaly Mikolenko, 21 years old. Ilya Zabarny, 18 years old. And then, of course, they still got the Ukrainian goalkeeper, Georgy Bushan, who I actually talked about recently in my last episode, that he played very well in the Nations League and just showed up for Ukraine there. So he's obviously going to be a huge time. He has a lot of experience, or is starting to get a lot of experience, but he's still relatively young for a goalkeeper. He's 26 years old. But I feel like that, even though they're young, they have a lot of talent, and I feel like that'll show up in this league. It's going to be a great time experience for all these players, and I feel like they ultimately finish third because of their overall quality. Next, we have Ferencváros. They have had minimal success in European competitions, made it to the Europa League qualifying rounds a few times this past decade, and even made it to the group stage last season, but they finished third. They did make it to the knockout rounds of the quarterfinals in 1965 and the 66 season of the Champions League, that is, but they would lose to Inter Milan. They would make it to the group stage one other time in the 95-96 season, but would finish third in that group as well. They have started this season off very well, having not lost a single game in their domestic league or the Champions League qualifiers. And they'll be relying on guys like Tongmak Nguyen, Israel, Frank Boli, and Denis Dibuz to really get them over the top. However, I just don't think it's going to be enough. Even against a club like Dynamo, I feel like they're just not going to have enough quality and enough offense or defense to really get them past this group or even into the Europa League. So I feel like they finished last in this group. Now let's move on to Group H, where we have my favorite team, PSG, going up against Manchester United, RB Leipzig, and Istanbul Başakşehir. Now, I feel like this is possibly the group of death, because PSG, obviously top club, one of the best in the world. Manchester United, even though they've been struggling, they're also a very top club, a very top-heavy club with a lot of quality. And then, of course, RB Leipzig as well, very young club, but have shown that just because they're young doesn't mean that they're not talented and play very well together. So let's just start off with PSG. They have made it to this Champions League final for the first time in their history last season, before ultimately losing to Bayern Munich. We all know this. I know this, obviously. Don't keep talking about it. I'm done with that. They have constantly been seen as one of the biggest bottlers of this competition, as they've had big-time first leg leads given up on multiple occasions. I know about this. Again, I'm done talking about this. So let's just get into their top players and just see, why is this team one of the best? Like, why are they considered one of the best? I don't know. I mean, they got Neymar, probably one of the best players in the world right now. Kylian Mbappe, one of the best young players in the world, and probably considered one of the best players in the world regardless of his age. You got Marquinhos, the captain, who has been, just a model player for anybody who goes to PSG. I just love his effort, his intensity, his technical ability, so good. You got Presnel Kimpembe playing alongside him as well. Of course, you got the Argentine Angel Di Maria and Mauro Icardi just playing so well up there. I actually feel like Icardi is going to be a huge time X factor for this team, because if he can, play with this team well and allow Mbappe to play off of him instead of him having to be a central forward, I feel like that'll work wonders for PSG, and I feel like that'll be what unlocks their offense in the Champions League. But aside from that, you also got ridiculous midfielders like Marco Verratti and Idrissa Gueye, and then of course Danilo Pereira that just recently came in on loan from from Porto, and then you also got Rafinha, who was just bought from Barcelona, and of course Ander Herrera. I can't forget Pablo Sarabia as well. Just so many top players on this team. I feel like they're so deep, and that's very necessary to really be a challenge in the Champions League, because, God forbid, I'm literally knocking on wood, Neymar, Mbappe, whatever, one of the top players picks up a lingering issue. You got a guy even like Moise Kean, who was just brought on during the deadline, that can fill in that role. Obviously, he's no Neymar, no Mbappe, no whatever, but he's good enough to at least get through. That's what you need on a club like this. You need those kind of guys that can step up and make those big-time plays, and we have that on this club. Of course, even with Manchester United and RB Leipzig here, I feel like PSG finished first in the group. No doubt about it. I feel like they actually run away with this group, but we'll see. But again, I do not feel like Manchester United or RB Leipzig hold a threat to us. So now let's talk about Manchester United. They have won the Champions League 3 separate times, one in 1968, 99, and 2008. They have won the Europa League most recently in 2017, but after their Champions League win in 2008, they have made it to the finals. They made it to the final again 2 more times, and actually 2 of the next 3 years, but they would lose both of those times to Barcelona. Since then, they have not even been able to get out of the quarterfinals. So obviously, they are trying to get back to the glory days, and they're starting to collect some solid players. They got Bruno Fernandes, of course, the talisman for them right there in the middle of the pitch. You got Anthony Martial, Rashford, and Greenwood, those young attackers, and then of course now they picked up Edinson Cavani, who I think is going to do wonders for them. You got David De Gea, one of the better goalkeepers in the world. You got Paul Pogba. Just a big-time midfielder, but he hasn't been playing to his best potential as of late. You match him with Juan Mata, who I think is huge for them. I think, especially the way he played in this last game against Newcastle United, I feel like he's such a great team player and is exactly what this team needs to really unlock the offense. But then you also got the defenders, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, really helping out in the back line. And then you got Danny Van de Beek and Alex Telles, 2 recent signings that they've got to really help out with depth. So overall, I feel like Manchester United have a really solid group. Definitely a lot of quality. The main issue with them is, can they be consistent? They have certainly not done that early on this season, and I guess that it all depends. Like, we need to see how they do. I mean, obviously, when they start taking on these top competitions, like RB Leipzig, those are going to be the games that really means, can they get into the knockout rounds or will they not? Will they fall apart? And will they allow RB Leipzig, the younger team, to really step up and get past them? I don't think that happens. I feel like Manchester United do just enough to get by into the knockout rounds, but I honestly think just enough. I feel like RB Leipzig and them will be having very tight battles, and I feel like if anything, they get by maybe on goal differential, maybe have the same amount of points, and that will hurt for RB Leipzig, but I just feel like that's the way it's going to go down. So now next, let's go with RB Leipzig, and they are the youngest club in this competition. They've been they're the youngest club in the entire world, at least as far as I know. Of course, that's just me just going off the top of my head, because they've been around by from 2009. That's when they were founded. Their first year of European competition was in 2017-18, where they finished 3rd in their Champions League group and eventually made it to the quarterfinals of the Europa League. Huge time start to their European competition history. Their only other Champions League run was last season when they made it all the way to the semifinals and, of course, lost to PSG. Now, I feel like despite being young, this team has had so much early success in their history, and I feel like it'll just continue to grow from there. Of course, like I've already said, I feel like they will finish third and head to the Europa League, but I feel like they will be one of the favorites to win the Europa League, no doubt about it, with players like Christopher Nkunku, Dayot Upamecano, who I already think, you guys have heard me talk about him plenty of times on this show. He is one of the best young defenders in the world. Him alongside Lucas Klosterman. You got right back Nordi Mukiele. And then you got left back Angelino, who is on loan from Man City. You got Marcel Sabitzer, Emil Forsberg. Tyler Adams, the United States midfielder, who scored that goal against Atletico Madrid last season in the Champions League. You got a couple new attackers that have been brought in to try to make up for the loss of Timo Werner in Hwang Hee-chan and Alexander Sorloth. Of course, you still got Yusuf Poulsen there. And then, of course, the goalkeeper, the ever-consistent Peter Gulaxi. So I do feel like they are a very strong group, but I don't think they have enough to get past Manchester United. Again, it's going to be really close. So they can easily get into the knockout rounds. But again, like I said, it would be tied. So it depends on who gets that goal differential. But whichever one of these two teams, Manchester United, RB Leipzig, do not make it, they'll be favorites in the Europa League, no doubt about it. And then, of course, last we got Istanbul Basaksehir here. They are a relatively young club. They were founded in 1990, didn't reach the highest level of Turkish football until 2007-2008, and last season was their first Super League title. But their title defense has not gone off to a great start with 4 points in their first 5 matches. Their first European competition was in 2015-2016 in the Europa League, and this is the third time they've been in the Champions League. They do have some solid players in Eden Viska. He had 19 goals, 13 assists last season. You got Enzo Crivelli, Demba Ba, each over 13 goals last season. You also got Irfan Kaveci, and then you got the goalkeeper Mert Gunak. He had 13 clean sheets, about a 77% save percentage, and so they got some solid quality, and they're gonna need especially those first 3 guys, Viscas, Crivelli, and Ba, to just play at the top of their game if they're really gonna want to challenge one of the top 3 teams here. I don't think they do. I think they obviously finished last in this group, especially with the way they've been playing so far this season, and yeah, that's it for them in the European football. But that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around. Trust me, you're going to want to, because we're going to be talking about the top 10 central midfielders of all time.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I went over groups G and H of the Champions League, finishing up my, preview of all the groups, and now we're going to be talking about the top 10 central midfielders of all time. Now, some of the guys on this list, before I go through the list, just want to set some parameters on how my list is made. If they were already on a list before, I don't put them here. So yes, maybe there was a guy who I put as a defensive midfielder that could be listed as a central midfielder. And same thing goes for like an attacking midfielder, which is going to be my next top 10. They might be considered attacking midfielders, but in my eyes, I see them as a central midfielder, and that is why they will be on this list. And the one name that comes to my mind is Lothar. What was his name? The guy in my last, he was number 1 in the last one. Lothar Matthäus. He is one of the best midfielders of all time. He can be considered literally an attacking, central, and defensive midfielder. I just so happen to put him as a defensive midfielder, but he could have easily topped this list as well. So he won't be here, but let's get right into it, starting with number 10, Waldir. I probably said this name totally wrong, but Waldir Pereira, known as Didi, the Brazilian. Didi is one of the early great free kick takers of soccer history. He perfected this skill to become one of the most dangerous weapons in soccer. He was an excellent passer of the ball and fit that 4-2-4 system of Brazil perfectly during that 1958 World Cup, which was by far his greatest achievement. I mean, he was an excellent complement to legends like Dino and Zito, perfectly throughout those Brazil golden years. He was literally a complete midfielder, as he would also get back and was an excellent ball winner, while he also had an eye for the long shot. Now, just to list a couple of his accomplishments, he won 2 World Cups, one in 1958, the other in 1962. He did get the FIFA World Cup Golden Ball in that 1958 season, was considered the best player in that entire competition, and then of course with that got into the All-Star team for that year as well. In the domestic leagues, he won 1 Champions League, he won 4 Copa Oswaldo Cruz trophies, he won 2 O'Higgins Cups, and 3 Campeonato Carioca. So just an overall great career for Didi, one of the best players of all time. Again, I don't have a lot of old-time players on this list. I feel like Didi was that one guy I was going to put on here that was from the old days, and he certainly deserves it. So Didi comes in at number 10. Number 9, we have Steven Gerrard, one of the first superstars I ever heard of when I was getting into soccer. He's considered one of the greatest footballers of his generation. I mean, even Zidane and Pelé said he was the best in the world during his, prime years. He was an extremely hardworking and versatile player. He could play literally anywhere on the pitch. Early in his career, he was used more as a defensive midfielder. He was an excellent ball winner during those years, but he would later develop into a box-to-box central midfielder and developed his now incredible vision and passing abilities. But probably the most notable skill about Gerrard that he had in his bag of tricks was his incredible shooting ability from distance. He scored long-distance goals in 3 separate cup finals. I mean, that's legendary stuff. That's like, there's a lot of guys that can pull off that long shot. I mean, not a lot of guys, but there's normal guys that could do that. But to do that in a cup final and 3 separate ones at that, that's legendary stuff. That's you are one of the best. You don't care what moment you're in, you're still gonna pull one of those off. And nothing was better than that UEFA Champions League win against what was it? I believe it was, who was it? It was Liverpool against AC Milan, where they had that ridiculous team with Kaká, they had Crespo, they had Nesta, they had Cafu. They had a ridiculous team. They had Pirlo even, and they looked like they were destined to win. They were up 3-0, but what happened? Gerrard and his resilience just continued to keep going, and he won. He didn't win it for them. Obviously, it was a team effort, but he was one of the main reasons why they were able to get over the hump and win that, Champions League title. But aside from that, he's also won the FA Cup twice. He won the Community Shield once. He was 3rd place in the Ballon d'Or voting in 2005, made it to 3 FIFA 5 Pro World 11s, and was the PFA Player of the Year in 2005, 2006. Definitely deserved, and Steven Gerrard comes in at number 9. Maybe you can consider him going up a little higher, but for me, I have him at number 9. At number 8, I got Clarence Sadorf. The Netherlands midfielder was gifted with incredible physical attributes, including pace, stamina, and strength. This allowed him to play nearly anywhere in midfield just naturally. I mean, it was just how it was for Sadorf. And he was excellent at winning back possession and breaking down opposing plays with his incredible athleticism. However, he was also a very creative player and can dribble with the best of them. I mean, this combination that he had allowed him to hold onto possession under pressure, and combined with his vision, he would find attackers in stride. I mean, it was just poetry in motion with Sadorf. And he also had a knack for goal, scoring over 100 goals in his career. One big time factor that Sadorf came in 8th here is he won 4 Champions League titles, but aside from that, he won with 3 separate clubs. The only player in history to do so. 2 with AC Milan, 1 with Ajax, 1 with Real Madrid. Just huge. Just one wherever he went, and that means something. He won 2 Eredivisie. He won 2 Dutch titles. Whatever. I'm not gonna say that league name. It's too hard to say for me. He won 1 La Liga title, 2 Serie A titles, a KNVB Cup, a Supercopa de España, a Copa Italia, a Supercopa Italiana, and he won 2 Dutch Football Talent of the Year awards. I mean, just a hell of a career for Clarence Sadorf, and it's associated with winning. Just winning. I mean, of course, he never won the World Cup, but that's because he was during a time that the Netherlands weren't really on top of the world like they were back in the day, like in the 90s, 80s. But still, Sadorf won it in the club level in every way he possibly could. So Sadorf comes in at number 8, absolutely deserved. And now you're going to be hearing a name that you probably have heard of. At number 7, we got Toni Kroos. I know, I mean, the guy's 30 years old, and I'm already considering him the 7th greatest central midfielder of all time. Kind of feels a little disrespectful to the guys behind him, but man, this guy is just that good. I mean, Kroos is one of the greatest passers and most intelligent players on this list. His ability to dictate the tempo of the game is literally second to none in today's game. He's also an excellent passer off set pieces, and Real Madrid attackers have been feasting, licking their chops on those pinpoint passes throughout his time there. I mean, his ability to win on multiple levels and be a huge part of those victories is what makes him one of the greatest central midfielders of all time. I mean, he just recently had his 100th cap for Germany. I mean, you don't do that by being a scrub. Trust me. His strength and overall intelligence allows him to play any position in the midfield. Just to list off a couple of his accomplishments, he's won 4 Champions Leagues, 3 with Real Madrid, 1 with Bayern. He won 3 Bundesliga titles, 2 La Liga titles. He won the World Cup in 2014. He won 2 DFB Pokals, 2 Supercopa de Españas. He's made it to the FIFA 5 Pro World 11 3 times, made it to the World Cup All-Star team in 2014, and he won Germany Footballer of the Year in 2018. Just an absolutely ridiculous resume for Toni Kroos, and 100% deserves to be number 7. And at just 30 years old, he's got a big-time chance to creep up even further up this list. But for now, he stays at number 7. Now at number 6, we have David Beckham. Here we have one of the greatest free kick takers of all time, and on many lists that I saw, I mean, for me, I thought he was number 1. However, that is not the case, but he is easily in the top 2, along with the Brazilian legend Juninho. Now, Beckham wouldn't wow you, and that's for a whole other list that I will for sure get to. Don't doubt it. Trust me, guys. I will get to that free kick takers list of all time. But for now, let's get to David Beckham. He wouldn't wow you with his athletic ability, but his technical ability with the ball was some of the best you'll ever see. I mean, his passing, vision, crossing, just allowed him to get teammates chances to score on a regular basis, and was one of the main reasons why Manchester United were so successful during his tenure. He had an excellent partnership with Gary Neville on the right flank during his time at Manchester United, and would work with him perfectly to get his chances, because he wasn't the type of guy that would go and just try to take on a player one-on-one. That just wasn't his game. He was more of he plays with the team, within the system, and then obviously if there was a free kick, you let Beckham go wild. And so just to list a couple of those accomplishments, he's won 6 Premier League titles. He won the UEFA Champions League once. He got a La Liga title as well, a Ligue 1 title, 2 MLS Cup wins, 2 FA Cup wins, and he was the runner-up of the Ballon d'Or in 1999. So, I mean, wherever David Beckham went, he won, and that is huge. I mean, that the guy's an influencer, and that's what he did. So, now we got number 5, Paul Scholes, another England midfielder. Scholes was famous for his incredible shooting from long range. I mean, you go and look at his highlights, that's what's going to be on there. However, what made him one of the greatest midfielders of all time was his technical ability. Jesus. He was an extremely accurate passer and was smart with his movements, knew where to go, knew where to find the open space, and that's why he would be open for all those ridiculous shots that you would see. It's not just, all right, guys, get me a spot here, and then I'll go and just use my leg and launch it. He got into those positions to be able to find open spaces and just be able to launch it into the goal. Now, when Scholes was younger, he mainly played as a striker. I mean, not surprising considering he, just the kind of shot he had. But as he matured, he developed into a complete player that could play in any midfield position. He was excellent at linking up with his teammates, and that is often what got him open for those legendary long-distance goals. Now, just to go off this legendary Premier League resume that he's got, he won 11 Premier League titles. Now, I do not know the history books, but I'm pretty sure that is one of the that's got to be one close to a record, if not a record. 11 Premier League titles. Like, come on. He also won 2 UEFA Champions Leagues, 3 FA Cups, and 5 FA Community Shields. Just a hell of a career for Paul Scholes, and absolutely deserves to be a top 5 central midfielder of all time. Next, we have Luka Modric. I told you guys he was going to be on this list. Or I told you he was going to be coming out shortly in this in this show. I told you guys he was coming. He is one of the greatest players of my generation and the greatest Croatian footballer of all time. He's a quick and creative playmaker with incredible vision. He normally focused on getting his teammates chances to score, but he also has the ability to score long-range goals as well. I mean, and he's so good at finding the spaces and just making something happen on his own, just doing ridiculous solo goals as if it's nothing. But that's not what you think when you think of Luka Modric. The fact that he even has that in his game is crazy. What makes him fun to watch is his touch with the ball and his ability to hold on to possession in even the highest pressure situations. Modric is the closest to a midfield maestro we have seen since the next 3 guys on this list. And now just to go over a few of the accomplishments that he has had. He's won 2 La Liga titles, 4 UEFA Champions Leagues, 3 Croatian First League titles, 1 Copa del Rey, 3 Supercopa de Españas, 2 Croatian Cups. He won the Ballon d'Or in 2018. He's made it to 5 FIFA 5 Pro World 11s, and he was the La Liga's best midfielder twice. Now, the reason he gets this high up on this list is because mainly that 2018 season. When he led Croatia to runners up in the World Cup, losing to France. I mean, France were unstoppable that year. Nobody was beating them, but for Modric to lead Croatia to that final and ultimately be named the best player of that tournament, and then the Ballon d'Or later, just an unbelievable season. One of the best I've ever seen. during an era that is dominated by Messi and Ronaldo, he came out on top that season. You gotta love it. Now, number 3, we have the master, the maestro, the magician, Andrea Pirlo. Now, where Modric is a master with his touch of the ball, Pirlo is a god. I mean, he was not gifted with pace, stamina, or physicality, but his composure with the ball, intelligence, and vision were unmatched. I mean, by the time I started really getting into football, he was already towards the end of his career, so I wasn't really able to see his prime. But man, even when he was with Juve and old, like, he was still a man amongst boys, just absolutely making his his defenders look like absolute fools. He's considered one of the greatest playmakers of all time, with his ability to make pretty much any pass on the pitch, and on top of that, know exactly when to make that pass. That is the most important part. Not can you make a 60-yard pass. Do you know when is the right moment to make that pass? Pirlo knew, and he did it nearly every single time. And since he wasn't physically gifted, he needed to use other ways to get past opposing players. And he did so by using his body to perfection and having perfect control of the ball. And his intelligence was off the charts. I mean, and the main reason he's considered one of the greatest ever play the game at his position. Now, the one play that comes to my mind whenever I think about Pirlo is that Panenka penalty that he got on England's Joe Hart in the Euros. It was the 2012 Euros, and it was just so nasty. And he made it look like it was nothing, like it was just another day at the office for him. That's Pirlo in a nutshell. Just to go off a couple of his accomplishments real quick, he's won 6 Serie A titles, 4 with Juve, 2 with AC Milan, 2 UEFA Champions League titles, both with AC Milan. He won the FIFA World Cup in 2006. He's won 2 Coppa Italias, 2 Supercoppa Italianas. He made the FIFA World Cup All-Star team in 2006, was the assist leader of that World Cup as well. He made it to 1 FIFA 5 Pro World 11. He was the Serie A Footballer of the Year 3 times, and he was voted 5th place for the Ballon d'Or in 2007. That was as close as he got. There was a couple other times where he was like 7th place and 9th place, but just didn't get any further than 5th. But still, hell of a resume, hell of a career for Andrea Pirlo. Next, number 2, we have the puppet master, Xavi. An absolute magician with the ball, and was the engine that made Barcelona one of the greatest teams ever in the late 90s and 2000s, really. I mean, mainly played as a deep line playmaker for Barcelona and would constantly find the open space. And that's what he said. That's what his goal was, to always find the open space. And he did that literally as good as anybody ever. Like, his signature move was doing like a 360-degree turn that would completely lose and just befuddle the defender. He was not highly regarded for his defensive or scoring abilities, but his combination of pinpoint passes, off-the-ball movement, reading of the game, and ball control allowed him to create plays for his teammates time and time again. And in the pursuit of World Cup glory in 2010, he would maintain a 91% passing success rate throughout the competition. Just ridiculous. And you cannot talk about Xavi without mentioning the tiki-taka play style that he had in Barcelona. Just in big part, it's because of Xavi that they were able to do that, but also the next man on this list, of course. Now, just real quick, those accomplishments of his: 8-time La Liga titles, 4-time Champions League winner, World Cup winner in 2010, 2-time Euro League winner, 6-time Supercopa de España winner, 3-time Copa del Rey, was the La Liga assist leader twice, World Soccer Player of the Year, 6-time FIFA 5 Pro World 11, 3-time Ballon d'Or Midfielder of the Year, plus he made 3rd place of the Ballon d'Or 3 straight seasons, behind Ronaldo and Messi, of course. But last and certainly not least, we got Andres Iniesta, at number 1. Now, Andres Iniesta, like, even when I was really getting into football, this guy was, already on the older side, but he was still an absolute monster. Now, like, it was just ridiculous how long and what good he was playing. Now, originally, Iniesta started off as a defensive midfielder, but his ball control and skills with the ball eventually allowed him to move further up the pitch and become more influential in the attack. He is as complete a player as they come. He can attack, he can defend. Obviously, started off as defensive midfielder. They're not going to put him there if he can't play defense. But he also creates for others with his incredible passing and has a great work rate. Compared to Xavi, he's not as good a passer as Xavi, but with everything else in terms of dribbling, his shooting, his defending, it was all better than Xavi. And that is exactly why he is number 1 on this list. And his combination, his link-up play with Xavi and Messi is the stuff of legends. And in my eyes, will go down as the greatest combo in football history. Hands down. Now, just to go off a few of these accomplishments, he's won 9 La Liga titles, 4 Champions Leagues. He won the World Cup in 2010, the Euros twice, 6 Copa del Reys, 7 Supercopa de Españas. He won La Liga Best Midfielder 5 times. He in the Ballon d'Or, he made 2nd place in 2010, 4th place in 2011, and 3rd place in 2012. And he was also the UEFA Champions League assist leader in 2010-2011, and was the La Liga assist leader in 2012-2013. On top of that, he made it to the FIFA 5 Pro World 11 9 times. Ridiculous resume for Andres Iniesta, and 100% deserves to be considered the best central midfielder of all time. So that's going to wrap it up for today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed. But as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.